Greetings, one and all, to the most cursed, most cringiest corner of the internet. A YouTube channel content creator actively alienating everyone in both the analog and digital world. Well, welcome and good evening, you wonderful dice of all alignments. I am Lunar D8. Sorry to keep you waiting. I've cooled my head a little. And did you think of a response to that pleasant, thrilling, refreshing, highly acclaimed, wonderful fantasy battle between teacher and me? Isn't that impossible to explain without fantasy? Ha ha ha. Milady, didn't you just promise to be kind and act more gracefully? No, oh no. I just got in such a good mood when I saw Battler's face, you see. Look, how are you gonna respond to that battle just now, Battler? Battle? What battle? What? In this rose garden. Where do you see those spears and towers you made lying around? They aren't here, are they? In other words, it's just like the inside of a brawn tube. The inside of a brawn tube? What in the world are you talking about now? At this very moment, there's nothing at all in the rose garden. Towers may have been sprouting with magic until a short while ago. However, that's only the case until we see what's inside the brawn tube. That magical battle is nothing more than your interpretation, your claim. The fact that there's absolutely nothing to see here now proves it. This is how I argue back about the witches' battle just now. Right now, there isn't anything here which proves that nothing happened. Ha. Come now, of course I can't make a huge mess when it's only the first twilight, and I am rather fond of that rose garden, you see. To prevent any damage, I had the fight incur inside of a barrier made by Yamamoto from Bleach, so it's only natural that it wouldn't have any influence on reality. That's your claim. Well, I guess that works. However, at this point in time, there is nothing in the rose garden. So nothing stands in the way of my claim that there was no magic done here. But wait, can you deny magic with a mess like that? It is impossible to prove magic does not exist. It's a devil's proof. At this point in time, this garden is the truth. The instant you look inside, the tiny people inside the brawn tube will vanish, and there are no traces of magic here at all. So that battle between you witches did not take place. What the? That counter? That power, could it be? Have you forgotten, my lady? It is the multi-layered world reduction technique. The power of a finite witch. The counter to the power of an endless witch. Only an endless witch can perceive it, and is most effective against such a witch. Schrodinger's cat box. That old hag of a witch. What an uncalled for hint. We've lost time, including 5 servants and grandfather. There are 6 corpses. Let me check the scene. I've been trudging along, wasting time. From now on, I'll speed things up, okay? Take a seat, Beatrice. It's finally the first twilight, isn't it? Let's start the real thing. Show me what you've got. It's getting swifty. Forget what the adults expected, at least for us kids. These were supposed to be a fun couple of days where the cousins deepened their friendship. However, when we woke up, there was an unbelievably cruel reality waiting for us. Hick, hick. George and Nikki and Jessica were crying over Shannon Chan and Cannon Coon's deaths. Right now, everyone who was alive had gathered in the lobby on the first floor of the guest house. There were 12 people here. Unbelievable, right? There were 18 until yesterday, and in one night a third of that number had lost their lives. I eventually sobered up from my agitation, and along with my lack of sleep from being woken up so early in the morning, I was beginning to feel a faint sense of unreality. I went to think this is some kind of bad dream. My cheap escapism keeps telling me that over and over. Maria had gone back to sleep on the sofa Rosa was sitting in. Rather than having her nerves of steel, she probably genuinely hadn't had enough of sleep. The adults were holding items from what was apparently grandfather's collection. Short-barrel Winchester rifles, apparently relics from a time he'd been obsessed with westerns. There were 4 guns altogether. Those had been split up among the 4 siblings. Uncle Kraus, Aunt Ava, my dad, and Aunt Rosa. Paper boxes filled with bullets lay on the table, and the siblings were silently loading them. It's a little scary, even now, touching one of these. I get the feeling Dad'll yell, "Don't touch that," and hit me. Well, isn't that great? No matter how much you touch them, you won't be hit again. I can't believe it. To think that Father would meet this kind of end. Well, I never did expect Kenzo-san to die normally in his bed, but even so, it is too horrible. Hey, I wonder if that really was Father. I think it might be a different person's corpse used as a substitute to trick us. No, it was Father without a doubt. You saw his toes, right? Generally speaking, there aren't many humans with 6 toes on both feet. But that doesn't mean that such people don't exist. I've heard that polydactyl isn't that rare a disease. He was a man, liked large-scale tricks, right? He might have obtained a corpse from somewhere that had the same number of toes on both feet. Ridiculous. Why would he do something like that? I'd argue if it was a normal person, but I'd agree if it was a normal person. But this is Father we're talking about. You can't be sure Kairi-san's talking nonsense. After all, burning a corpse makes it hard to identify. Still, there should be a few ways to examine him from his teeth and bone structure. If the police investigated, of course, they'd be able to know whose body it was right away. The problem is that we need a telephone engineer more than the police right now. The boats probably won't come in this typhoon. So, will they arrive tomorrow? Most likely the boat will come again at 9 o'clock tomorrow. Then I believe we will be able to contact the police. It's the same for us and the culprit. Until the typhoon passes, this island will be closed off. Just from our parents' conversation, you could probably figure out the general gist, but let's explain the situation anyway. First, early in that morning, in various places throughout the mansion, of total 6 corpses, including grandfather and all the servants, had been found one after another. First, grandfather had been in the boiler room, completely burnt. The servants had died, each shut up in the rooms throughout the mansion that had the magic circles drawn on them. The cause of death of the servants was uncertain, but according to Dr. Nanjo's Diagnosis: there was a high likelihood that they had been stabbed by something like a spear, or possibly shot with a gun. That was why the adults had started arming themselves with Winchesters. And what made the situation even more chaotic was the fact that the telephones had become unusable. It was unknown if lightning had caused them to break down, or if the culprit had broken them. At any rate, since contact with the outside had been cut off, we couldn't reach the police. So, until the typhoon passes and a boat comes tomorrow morning, we'll have to protect ourselves. After all, Rokanjima is now isolated by the typhoon, and just as we're stuck on the island, so is the culprit. It seemed that the adults had stayed up all night holding the family conference in the mansion's dining hall the whole time, and yet the crime had occurred in the mansion. So right when the adults had been in an uproar over money, the murderer had been killing under the same roof. They say Aunt Natsui's been strict about locking the doors and windows at night, and yet some suspicious people had entered and left the mansion. The adults had decided that the inside of the mansion was too large to be safe, so they had pulled out the guns and moved to the guest house where we had been. Which brings us to the present. George Nikki had begged to see Shannon Chan's corpse, but the adults had refused, saying that he mustn't do so until the police arrived. That wasn't just because they wanted to seal the rooms to preserve the scene. After all, the culprit who had killed 6 people was wandering about the mansion. To the Ushiromiya family right now, that mansion should have been their home. The mansion that should have been their home was now a danger zone, that an unknown murderer could enter and leave at will. After all, it's a huge mansion. There are plenty of blind spots and dark places, and it's too vast to guarantee absolute safety with this number of people. Relatively speaking, the guest house was much smaller. It had 2 above-ground stories, something like 10 or so rooms. Apparently it had originally been constructed to serve as a small hotel, as part of the plan to turn this island into a resort, so it was easier to know what was going on everywhere inside it, and it'd be easier to keep safe. It made a good place to hole up in. Also, it was extremely likely that this mass murder of 6 people was a game. After all, the culprit had proclaimed so in a letter. I heard that a Western-style envelope with a family crest, just like the one Maria claimed to have received from Beatrice yesterday, had been found in the boiler room where grandfather's corpse had been discovered. This was what the letter said. So that there will be no misunderstandings, the game I seek is for everyone to try and solve the riddle of the epitaph, not for you to try and catch me. If you don't solve the riddle, the pitiful sacrifices will further increase in number. It would be wiser to spend your time solving the epitaph instead of searching for me. If no one can solve the riddle, no one will survive. If a person appears who can miraculously solve it, I will give them all the gold of the Golden Land, the Ushiromiya family headship, and all of my power. I was the one who succeeded the Ushiromiya family headship after Kenzo-sama. I look forward to seeing who will succeed to that headship after me. The Golden Witch, Beatrice. The riddle of the epitaph was that thing. His body was found as a burnt corpse in the underground boiler room's incinerator. No evidence of a struggle was found inside the incinerator, so it's probably reasonable to assume that he was burned after his murder. Too bad this time. It was game over right from the start. His body was found in the VIP room on the 2nd floor. The weapon used on him is assumed to be a gun or spear-shaped object. To thank Genji for his many years of service, let us allow him to rest in the VIP room. Her corpse was found in the parlor on the 1st floor. The weapon used on her is assumed to be a gun or a spear-shaped object. Let Shannon have the parlor, with its wonderful view of the rose garden on sunny days. His corpse was found in the chapel. The weapon used on him is soon to be a gun or a spear-shaped object. For Canon, the chapel let him continue to protect the Lord's precious place even after death. His corpse was found in the waiting room on the 3rd floor. This room next to the study is fitting for him, considering how much he wanted to earn Kenzo's favor. Her corpse was found in the guest room on the 2nd floor. This seldom used 2nd floor guest room was her secret napping spot. The strange epitaph written by the portrait of the witch on display in the hall of the mansion. Grandfather was the one who had it written, and the person who solved it would supposedly be given the inheritance or the hidden gold or something like that, ever since it was first put on display there several years ago.